Hello, this is the daily COVID update from Deccan Herald. I am Akhil. On the bulletin today, Karnataka reports the highest spike in new cases. 54 cases have been recorded today. PM Modi will meet chief ministers tomorrow to decide on the lockdown. Indian Railways has decided to resume passenger train services in a phased manner. And Amulya joins us to examine what the novel coronavirus is doing to war-torn areas or in conflict zones. But first, as we go into this recording, more than 2,000 new COVID-19 cases have been reported today. More than 43,000 people are active carriers of the virus. Over 20,000 patients have recovered since they first tested, and the country has registered over 2,000 COVID-related deaths so far. India has readied more than 6.5 lakh beds at more than 7,000 facilities across 483 districts to meet the challenge posed by the outbreak. With migrant workers returning to their home states in huge numbers, this infrastructure is likely to be put to the test over the next few days. The Indian Council of Medical Research has tested more than 16 lakh samples so far and more than 85,000 tests in the last 24 hours. A look at the numbers from some of the states now. Mumbai alone has reported 19 deaths today, and Maharashtra continues to have the highest number of active cases in the country. Tamil Nadu has added 669 cases and has over 5,000 active cases. Gujarat has reported 399 new cases, which has taken its tally to 5,157 active cases. A look at the numbers from Karnataka. 54 cases of COVID-19 have been reported from the state. This is the highest single-day spike in Karnataka. Shimoga, which was until now a green zone, has reported 8 new cases, all of whom have returned from Ahmedabad in Gujarat. District in charge Minister K.S. Ishwarappa said that these are linked to the Tablighi Jamaat congregation held in Delhi. All the returnees have been quarantined. Among others, 22 new cases from Belgavi, 8 cases from Bagalkot, and 1 case from Davangere have a travel history to Ajmer in Rajasthan. Since the relaxation of the lockdown on May 4th, 233 cases have been reported in the state. Compared to this, 102 cases had been recorded in the state 6 days before the lockdown was announced. The spike has also been triggered by people returning to Karnataka from other states. Among other cases now, 7 cases linked to patient 659 are reported from Batkal. Kalburgi has reported 4 new cases, of which 1 has presented with severe acute respiratory illness, 1 with influenza-like illness, 1 has a travel history to Maharashtra, and 1 is a contact of a previously diagnosed patient. Bangalore Urban has reported 1 case from Padrayanapura, and 2 cases have been presented with SARI and ILI, influenza-like illness. 1 case from Chikbalapura is a contact of a previously diagnosed patient. With this, the state has reported a total of 848 cases, out of which 394 are active cases. 422 patients have been discharged so far, and 31 deaths have occurred in the state. Meantime, a 56-year-old woman from Bangalore is the most recent casualty due to the viral infection. The woman had complained of breathlessness and had sought treatment at 2 private hospitals in the city, neither of whom apparently had run a test for COVID-19. A post-mortem test confirmed the presence of the virus. In national news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will meet chief ministers from various states via video conferencing tomorrow to decide on the future course of action. The 3rd phase of the lockdown ends in a week. After 54 days of lockdown, opinion among the chief ministers is divided. Some, like Telangana, want the lockdown extended until May 29th. Maharashtra is inclined to favor this, considering its high rate. However, some others have been resigned to the fact that this virus will remain in our midst and that the livelihoods must not be lost as a consequence. Some states are favoring a zone-wise lockdown instead of locking out the entire state. Migrant movement has come out to be a huge issue in Lockdown 3.0. The Karnataka government has written to the center to allow a zoning classification of Bangalore city to enable economic activity. The Indian Railways plans to resume passenger services from May 12th, but in a phased manner. All trains will originate from New Delhi and travel to 15 locations across the country, including Mumbai, Bengaluru, and Chennai. As of now, only online bookings permitted on the IRCTC website from 4 p.m. on May 11th. Booking counters will stay closed. Only those with confirmed tickets will be allowed to enter railway stations. For details, log on to the Deccan Herald website. Days after 11 lives were lost at a gas leak in a factory in Visakhapatnam, the National Disaster Management Authority has issued fresh guidelines for factories reopening during and after the COVID-19 lockdown, advising them not to scale up production in the first week itself and instead run a trial basis. In news from Karnataka, Yenepoya Medical College Hospital in Dakshina Kannada district has received a nod from the Indian Council of Medical Research to conduct tests for COVID-19. Yenepoya Hospital is the first private hospital in Dakshina Kannada district to get ICMR approval for COVID-19 RT-PCR tests. Of the 35 ICMR approved labs in Karnataka, 28 have been running tests. Of these, 17 are government facilities and 11 are private labs. Despite the demand for private labs, data released today reveals that they account for just 7.9% of all samples tested in Karnataka. Government labs, on the other hand, have tested more than 92,000 samples. Moving on, it goes without saying that COVID-19 pandemic is anything unlike we have seen so far. The first pandemic of the century has changed our notion of the enemy, with many calling the virus the invisible enemy. But there are several locations around the world dealing with both an external enemy as well as COVID-19. In our international segment, Amulya takes a look at how conflict zones and war-ridden countries are dealing with the health crisis, on top of everything else that they have to deal with. Amulya, all yours.
One of the major things that this pandemic has demonstrated is no matter which country you may belong to, the novel coronavirus will get to you. If not now, eventually. When developed countries with stable economies are finding it difficult to control COVID-19, what about the conflict zones? What about the refugees? How are those living within these fragile nation states faring? According to the Associated Press, there are over 7 crore people worldwide who have been driven from their homes by war and unrest. Up to 1 crore people are packed into refugee camps and informal settlements, and almost none have been tested for the coronavirus. In the last 24 hours, Bangladesh rescued around 280 Rohingya refugees stranded at sea who have now been placed under quarantine in the country. The authorities have towed their boat to the Bhasanchar island in Bay of Bengal. Last weekend, 29 Rohingyas were taken to the same island. The country has faced severe criticism from human rights activists and Rohingya leaders for choosing this island for resettlement of the refugees, as it is vulnerable to floods and elephant attacks. It may even go underwater by next monsoon. But right now, Bhasanchar Island is being used as a quarantine facility for the refugees found in the waters of Bay of Bengal. The Bangladesh government has not yet decided what it's going to do once the 14-day quarantine period ends. Despite the coronavirus scare, boats filled with Rohingyas continue to be found in the waters. Their hopes of reaching Malaysia or Thailand are now dashed, as almost all of Southeast Asian countries have tightened patrolling of their borders to protect themselves from the novel coronavirus and are not heeding the UN, which has urged the countries to let at least the boats land. In Syria, it has been almost a decade since the conflict began, and now the country is being governed by 3 different entities. Right now, there are around 50 reported cases of COVID-19 and 3 deaths across fragmented Syria. In the rebel-held northwestern Idlib province with more than 4 million population, there are just 98 ventilators. According to AP, the World Health Organization has sent 5,900 testing kits to Idlib, where they are being carefully rationed. Authorities have carried out around 200 tests so far, all of which came back negative. According to an Al Jazeera report, medical personnel in Kurdish-run northeast Syria are making protective gear from rubbish bags. This territory has been cut off from outside aid, including United Nations shipments from Iraq that were vetoed by Syrian government's ally Russia. Since Syrian authorities are conducting coronavirus tests only in Damascus' central lab, Kurdish-run northeast had to send its samples by plane to the capital. Meanwhile, since most of the major cities, including Damascus, is under Syrian government's control, WHO has mainly had to depend on Assad's regime to supply the medical equipment. But the regime is not sending it out to many non-government areas like Kurdish Northeast and rebel-held Northwest, where WHO has had to engage in separate negotiations. In Yemen, a country which is going through a worst humanitarian crisis with ongoing famine, cholera outbreaks and Saudi-led military blockade, a total of 36 positive cases of COVID-19 have been reported. The nation was under heavy bombing by Saudi Arabia until recently, before announcing a unilateral ceasefire on April 9th to contain the virus. COVID-19 can be especially devastating to the malnourished population of Yemenis, as WHO believes the population has some of the lowest levels of immunity to the disease compared with other countries. Around 80% of the population depends on the humanitarian aid in Yemen. In Kashmir, the Indian government cut all communication and internet services in the wake of Hizbul Mujahideen commander Riaz Naiku's killing. But mobile phone service was restored on Saturday. The government has ramped up counter-insurgency operations in the valley while the rest of the country deals with the pandemic. Similarly, many conflict zones across the globe like Libya, Somalia, eastern Ukraine may have to be ready for some upheaval, not only in terms of public health but also politically, as different state and non-state actors try to consolidate power during this pandemic.
Thanks for bringing us that, Amulya. And that's all we have time for today. For the latest updates, log on to DeccanHerald.com. Stay safe and we'll see you tomorrow.